and welcome to Beginnings, the show that asks, where do creative people come from? My name is Andy. I'm the host of the show and a writer and performer based in Los Angeles, California. How is everyone feeling this week? I'm slightly optimistic in a way that I haven't been in a long while. You know, Tim Walz was just chosen as the VP a couple days ago from when you're hearing this. If you're downloading it the day it comes out, of course. If you're downloading in the future, who knows what the fuck is happening. But, and look, I'm to the left of the Dems on just about every issue. But the thing is, for my entire life, they have simply been these kind of accountants. You know, the Democratic Party is made up of a lot of just like McKinsey freaks in the back room, sabermaticsing a strategy that will give them a one-vote electoral victory that doesn't offend a single member of the donor class. And then if there's an anomaly and they lose, you know, no big deal, because the fundraising goes through the roof when the GOP is in charge. So that's been the Democrats since the Clintons. Okay, so this has been my entire life. So to see them calling out fascists for being freaks and weird, for being obsessed with women's menstrual cycles and all the other things that the GOP has become obsessed with in my lifetime, to see them actually call them out on these things is a breath of fresh air, folks. So I'm feeling slightly optimistic because, of course, even if you are to the left of the Dems like I am, the strategic thing is still to want to see them beat the monsters on the right. So anyway, that's where I'm feeling right now. I'm also feeling good because I love this episode. Yes, that's right, folks. This is a great episode, and today I am talking to Asher White, and if you do not know who she is, I'm going to read you her bio right now. Originally from Evanston, Illinois, musician and artist Asher White has built an immense discography since she was a teenager, recording over a dozen self-released albums since 2015. Starting with 2023's new Excellent Woman, the wonderful label Bada Bing began putting out Asher's music, and her latest, Home Constellation Study, was just released at the end of June, and like everything else Asher's done, it's excellent. This was great. I love talking to Asher. I love her music. I'll say this, I'm always a little wary talking to people who are younger than 30, just because you're still forming a little bit, still figuring out who you are and how you want to articulate who you are. But Asher has already thought through these things. She's very thoughtful and eloquent, and I hope you like this as much as I enjoyed talking to her. Also, coming up on the show next week, Mabi Frati. Wonderful, wonderful Guatemalan cellist. We have a very cool talk about growing up kind of in the wake of the dictatorship that ends in Guatemala when she is a child, and what that meant for her life path. Coming up also, Matt Bors, wonderful political cartoonist. That was very cool. He was the founder of one of my favorite publications the last decade or so, The Nib. So stay tuned for those. But for now, let's talk to Asher. Something that we were talking about before we hit record, I want to get back to because I think there's something there that at least it goes deep to my own core, and I'm curious if it goes deep to your core. We were talking about today that we're recording this, the Emmy nominations came out, and I was talking about how when I moved out here and learned what actually is behind at least television and film nominations, that it's mostly publicists and campaigning more than the quality of the thing. And you started talking about the Grammys. And something that's I've never identified with the Grammys. Almost no music I like has ever, there's like a handful of things that I like, that like Death Cab for Cutie maybe, that gets nominated. But for the most part, it's music that just doesn't resonate with me. And as I get older, I don't feel older. I don't feel like I've any more apart from pop culture than I was when I was your age or when I was a teenager. And I'm wondering, do you identify with pop? Or, you know, I mean, you are much younger than me. You're about 2 decades younger than me. And I'm wondering if pop culture is more integrated into your life, if that's a generational thing. What, you know, I'm just like kind of throwing out a bunch of different topics, but, you know, speak to what.
No. That's interesting. Did you once feel very tuned in? Like when you were 24, were you like, oh, okay.
Never. That's the thing. I've always felt so like aging doesn't like, I don't feel old, like, cause I just feel the same, like the same way I did when I was a teenager.
Yeah. You don't know your back's okay. Like you don't have like arthritic, early rheumatism stuff.
I take pretty good care of myself. I'm a little bloated today, so I look a little puffy, but outside of that.
Yeah. Cause conversely, I feel geriatric physically, but
why?
Maybe
how come?
But also deep, but also incredibly hip and cool, like a young child. No, I feel tuned into pop culture. I think I'm the thing about the Grammys, just to tie that up, is that what's confusing and unsettling to me about that is that the Grammys don't actually seem that tied into pop culture. Like, I don't know any, I listen to a good amount of pop music and am around people my age who are listening to music that's coming out now for people my age and stuff, and feel generally tuned into like current, you know, contemporary rap and stuff and what's being listened to. But I mean, the Grammys, it's always like it is a frighteningly anonymous person who no one knows and who has won like by some insane stroke of internal machination has triumphed over everyone else. It's confusing, but I do feel I feel up to date on pop. I feel plugged in. I like where pop music is, and I'm inspired by it. And I think it's also art. I think it's becoming, I don't want to make that claim that it's becoming increasingly artful, but I do think it's there's never been less opacity in pop music. There's never been more transparency in terms of the way that songs are built and stuff, which I like.
Well, what do you mean by that?
I think now that we're in a post home recording way, you have like as soon as a Doja Cat song gets released, there's like 5 YouTube tutorials that's like, this is how you make that beat. So there's like, in the same way, if you had like in the 70s, you had like boys listening to like Boston, or like like you had guys building decks with their dads and listening to like Cheap Trick, and they're like, oh, I could do that. Like, it's just like, I can make power pop. You're having that now on a much greater scale, where it's like you have the modern contemporary pop music that we're hearing is also something that now anyone's able to make, which was not true like 20 years ago. Like, even though there was like electronic pop music and like Timbaland beats, like no one could make Timbaland beats in 2001. Unless you're Timbaland.
Outside of the production, does it resonate with you emotionally?
A ton of it does, yeah. I think like not all, but probably I would say a similar percentage of the music that hits home, or that I could feasibly cry to or like lose myself to. The percentage of pop music for which that's true is probably about the same for the percentage of like quote unquote indie or DIY music for which that's true. Or like music from across the landscape. And I have a pretty wide, not to be, you know, masturbatory about it, but I have a pretty wide frame of reference. I'd like to think. I worked at a record store for a long time. Okay.
That's really interesting, because I found and obviously things are different, but like when I was a teenager, when I was in my 20s, even cut off from my emotions, which I was totally cut off from my emotions until like, you know, my early 30s or so, therapy and other such things that I name check on this show every single week, so I won't go into it. You can guess. But even in that kind of repressed phase of my life, I still found a lot of mainstream pop music to be that it just didn't speak to me in any way, even emotionally. Like, I went to music for emotional nuance that I wasn't allowing myself to feel. And I would get it from, you know, I mean, I do... like I think about this at like Superchunk. I don't know if you listen to Superchunk at all, but like Mac McCaughan writes about kind of like in his lyrics, there's a lot of stuff about just like the nuances of adult relationships and like little bits and pieces there that I was like, oh, that, or like I remember there was this That Dog song when I was a teenager about that her either Anna Waronker or whatever character she's writing about trying S&M and her partner kind of like not being able to like be in the fantasy and kind of like laughing about it. And I was like, oh, well, that seems like an adult relationship. Like that feels like a nuance that,
that's amazing.
yeah. That I don't think I would ever get from I don't know. Please, Swifties, don't come for me. But like Taylor Swift.
Have you listened to Darling Nikki by Prince?
No.
That song's about that, and it's off of like the biggest selling album of the 1980s. So there you go. But I
was a child, so I missed Prince because I was a child then. So whatever was I'm mostly talking about stuff that happened in the 90s.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're right. Like it definitely there's definitely the scope of what is going to be, sold at Urban Outfitters or Barnes and Noble is going to be a small. The scope of it is totally different than what you could get from, the Archers of Loaf or something, or like from that scene.
You're like white 40-something male. You say Archers of Loaf. Okay.
Well, because I think you said Superchunk, and they're both Virginia, right, or something. I don't know. I don't know. I associate them with each other. Right. North Carolina, yeah. But whatever. Those are just like those are super verbose, specific, and like very about the minutia of growing old and thinking about yourself in relationship to other people and stuff. In a way that I think would be, if it were to be translated into a widely accessible way, and when it is, which it is very, very rarely, it takes someone who is like an absolute master of their craft. And then so there, I feel like there's some pop music figures, probably once a generation or a decade or something, that are able to represent what you're talking about, like incredibly specific, incredibly, perhaps mundane, but like very, very human, small experiences of being alive, and still make it, widely accessible and still somehow sell it with, publicists and a team or something. Frank Ocean to me is a good example of someone who has done that. People go crazy over Blonde, and there are lines on Blonde that are so unbelievably evocative and so, specific to an experience of like being sleep deprived and coming home to a friend's house or something like that. But it's like, it's Blonde. It's like a huge record.
Right.
So it's interesting. I'm trying to think of the music that I've recently had like really felt really, really seen by or felt really connected with. And I think it's kind of a toss up as to what world it comes from.
I guess when I think of this a lot, I think of what friends of mine are listening to. So I see them post about, in stories or something like that. And it's, Chappell Roan, or I was about to say JoJo Siwa, just because when we were talking earlier, that dance was in my head. So
she's amazing. She's awesome. She's crazy.
But like Chappell Roan is like,
I don't fuck with Chappell Roan.
Is the big, what I'm just saying, that's what I see a lot of people posting about now, or Charlie XCX, or someone, or Billie Eilish, or some people like that, where I listen to it just to see what it's like, and it's not bad necessarily. I mean, I'm not going to judge it, but it doesn't resonate with me in any way. And so I still feel this is where I'm curious. I don't know if this is a generational thing, if this is a you thing, and I guess that's where I'm trying to like pinpoint and kind of start there, which is I've always felt alienated in some way. Sometimes a band I will like is also extremely famous, like Nirvana. Okay.
Sure,
And I don't
yeah.
have a problem with that. I'm not like, I don't get resentful. That's not what I'm trying to say, where I'm just
Yeah.
like, how dare everyone else listen to the band I love? It is more like I've always felt mostly alienated. And now that I'm like most people, when they age, they no longer are part of pop culture, or pop culture no longer speaks to them, so they start to feel alienated. And I've just felt the same my entire life. So I'm just like, all right, whatever, I'm older.
Do you feel alienated by current fault, like sticking to the particular niche that you had found, or like the music that resonated with you in your adolescence or in your 20s? If you've like continued orbiting those like bands or those sounds or those ideas, those thematic concerns or whatever, do you still relate to the music that is of that genre or of that world that is being made today, or do you feel alienated by it? Like, do you know what I'm asking?
If it has meaning to it, right? I think the thing, what resonates with me is if it has meaning and if it's complex in some way, not all the time, but, or if there's something just a little interesting about it. Like my brain just happens to naturally glom onto things that like that fit into those three categories, you know. And luckily, you know, I mean, that's what draws me to your music, right? Is that there is a lot going on. It resonates with me emotionally on some level, right? And so, but you know, you could have been making the music you were making now 20 years ago, and it would have fit in well.
I think way better. I think it would be like people would. Yeah, I think it would be like acceptable. Yeah, I mean,
wait, sorry. Can I just interrupt you for a second? You don't think it's acceptable now?
I don't. I mean, I feel like it's a little anachronistic. What's funny is that I think people find it anachronistic more than I don't feel like I'm working within any particular style intentionally, but I recognize and also appreciate and like I'm honored to be compared to a certain let's just say Animal and Number from a collective from Athens, Georgia in the late 90s. I love like Elephant Six and all that stuff, but I'm not like setting out to make like 2004 era Baroque pop as people tend to accuse me of doing.
But that's so weird. I would never do that. And I don't mean that like I would never do that. I mean that's not what your music. I don't know. First of all, I just listen and enjoy. So I haven't really sat down and intellectualized it. But I don't think I would throw you in with Elephant Six. I just because Elephant Six was a very particular. We're like doing our version of 60s pop, and each group has their own take on a different band from the 60s in some way. And I don't see you doing that necessarily. I just see you doing, you know, you're using some of the same elements. See, that's what gets me about kind of when I did write music criticism, I always found a lot of people lazy because they would just be like, well, that sounds like this, so I guess I'm going to throw it in with that. I'm just like, well, just because they use maybe some of the similar instruments doesn't mean it's same.
Yeah. That's meanful. Thank you. I mean, I like to hear that. I would like to think, I don't think of my music as being pastiche or anything. And kind of actively I'm worried about it being that way. But, this is to say basically that I feel that the music that I'm making fits more in retrospect, like after looking at it on Spotify or something, like when I have removed from the process of making it, I recognize that it fits in more squarely with a dominant music scene, music trend that was happening like 20 years ago or like 15 years ago.
Well, is this just algorithmically combining things where if someone listens to this, this has horns, so this... Like, then it's just like, well, I don't know. Are you including ska? Like, what do you include? Just because something has horns and it doesn't mean. Do you know what I mean? And,
yeah.
And I'm asking that to get back to this question of alienation from pop culture and whether it's whether it's a generational thing that I'm missing, whether it's a you thing, because that's kind of what I'm curious about.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess I can't. I don't want to speak for for the whole of my generation, just because but I guess I feel somewhat like a weirdy. I feel like a weirdy, in terms of I feel like I don't relate to a lot of the way that other people around me are making music, though I'm envious of it and wish I related to it more. I feel like my music is profoundly uncool, and I feel as a creator and as a musician, I would say pretty alienated. As a listener, however, I feel actually, I would say, very welcomed. I feel like I fit well into the way that my peers listen to music and the people I know listen to music. And I also highly relate to a lot of the music that I listen to from the top 40 to, the like Silver Apples reissues of, whatever, like Numero group, like 90s, whatever it be. Like, I feel like I have I often find myself having meaningful experiences with music and feel seen by it. But I see a lot of bands and a lot of people making music, and I'm like, oh fuck, they're all like, I'm a freak. Like, they're all doing this in a really cool way, and I'm doing something weird and annoying. Like, I'm doing these like gay little songs. So I feel a little bit alienated in that sense.
Well, then why not make music? And I mean, I know the answer because it's the same in me, where I see people and I'm like, oh, I wish I could do that. Instead, I'm just writing my weird scripts, or So I get what you're saying. It resonates with me, but I'm curious, why not write a song?
I ask myself that, like, I scream that to myself in the mirror with like bleary eyes and like a red face, like my mouth dripping with like toothpaste and whiskey, like freaking out. Like, I'm bad at it. I try all the time. I'm always trying to like, oh, I'm going to make like a cool, like, song that sounds like Blade, or like, I'm going to make like a vaporwave song now. And it's shitty. Like, I'm just bad at it. Or sometimes I'll be like, oh, I'm going to make a song with like, that sounds like Alex G, or that has like this cool remove, like this like narcotic kind of dreamy thing. And I can like only make these songs that are like dun 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 dun. And so that's like what I've just kind of ascribed my fate to be.
It's funny. I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, my agent was like, can you write a normal script so that we can get you staffed? And so I sat down and wrote, a kind of like, not bog standard, but just like, here's a version of my life post grad school, and like, what would happen if things went bad? And that character works at an OTB in Pennsylvania, and there's just like, it's pretty, but there's still like jokes about Heidegger and like philosophy jokes and stuff in there, and all this other stuff. And I'm just like, even when I'm trying to write just here's just the most normal thing, it's still slightly strange.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably what happened with the script.
I get that they send it out for my industry's cratering at the moment, so there's not a lot of stuff going on. But when I am
was it well received? Were they like, oh yeah, this is
she was fine with it, but it's just that because the thing that my sample before was a pilot about a cosmic event that switches everyone's ages, and how the main character went from being in her 20s to now in her 40s, and she missed a chunk of her life and is now, and there's all, all the stuff that comes from that. And so she's like, just something that, like, if I sent this out to, the office, they would be like, yes, I can understand who this person is.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think that's I guess the perils of working in an industry that hasn't yet figured out how to reward like the deviation, or like foreground the deviation. Instead, it's like collateral to the thing. Like I feel with TV, it definitely, when shows are accidentally weird through some oversight, like the something slips through the cracks, some producer is like sick that day and like green lights something that's like that's super weird. It's pretty consistently really well received by people. So it's not like the masses and people don't have an appetite for weirdness. And usually when something is like singular and strange because of someone's own eccentricities, I'm thinking of shows like Twin Peaks or like Atlanta, where the quality of the show is like pretty one-to-one directly because of its creators, Hiro Murai and Donald Glover and David Lynch and stuff. It's like people love it. It becomes a thing. So, and I don't know, I think that's true in contemporary music too, when this is like the post Nirvana Warner Brothers trying to sign like the next Nirvana and accidentally signing like Mr. Bungle and Melt Banana and all these insane noise rock bands.
Right.
But it's like, everyone loves this record. Like, you know, they gave a platform to these like totally mistakenly. Like there's no reason that they should have done it other than that they were like spending insane amounts of random like Seattle grunge cash. Like they accidentally give a platform to these like absolute fucking weirdos. And, it was a huge commercial failure, but it's like, those bands are amazing. This band spawned so many, important moments for me.
So here's the thing. You saying, you know, I've tried to write these other songs. I can't. I look in the mirror and scream until I'm red-faced. I don't know how much of that was a joke or not, but you seem to have a fairly good grasp on who you are as a person, and you're in your early 20s still. And I'm kind of curious, how did you get that sense of self? And I use myself as this kind of sounding board because I didn't figure it out really until I was in my late 20s. So, you know, maybe I'm just a late bloomer, but.
Well, I mean, you flatter me. I'm firmly in my mid 20s. I'm 24. I'm 24. That's in the mid.
Nope. 25.
Don't you think it's 3 and 3? I know you're right. I don't know. But that is nice. I don't know. I mean, there's not so much a poetic answer so much as there is a, like kind of annoying answer, which is that I got really lucky being raised in a household and in a community that was like really easy on me. That was like nice. Like, I don't mean to be like, well, the secret is white privilege, but that kind of a little bit is, it's like, but not too much, you know, like the kind of Goldilocks zone of having like not growing up in a mansion with like, you know, parents who are intense, but like instead growing up in like a pretty metropolitan area with like, liberal Jewish parents who are like nice to me. But like don't want me to, you know, do drugs, but like are fine if I did, you know, it's like that kind of thing. So I feel like I was given a long leash, and I hesitate to credit maturation or like any type of accelerated path to anything other than like dumb luck. I feel like I was born at a good time at the right place. Especially the trans thing went really well. They loved that. Yeah, it feels like consolation because for a while I was like, oh, I was born in the wrong body and I'm going to kill myself. Like, this is so bad. This is like horrible. And, that obviously is like a kind of eternal and ancient pain that lurks under the surface of my everyday generally that I just kind of distract myself from, or that I actively just don't face to look at. So, that's like unspeakably sad to me. This like, you know, I'll live once and then I'll be dead forever. And like the whole premise of it got like fucked up. Like I was just born. Yeah. Like I was supposed to have the other body and whatever. But because the other variables or the other factors of my life, otherwise went really smoothly, I can like, it feels fine. I can justify it by being like, yeah. Do you know what I mean? Does that sound like really obnoxious?
No, but I'm trying to like, that is interesting. You saying that the kind of like the cosmic mistake of it all.
Yeah.
Even though you are in a family that's not bigoted, right? And in a community, I mean, let's not talk about the country, but like in a community that's not bigoted.
Yes.
Just the very kind of like chromosomal thing that happened, that gets to you.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, not even in a religious way. it does, like, in a Kabbalistic way, or like a non-dualist way. And as soon as I began to look into Judaism more seriously, and still not very seriously, but like more seriously, it's, there are no mistakes, and right. This is actually just the entire fabric of the world is just rearranged particles of Hashem, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't actually, I wouldn't die on that hill as a conviction. But yeah, I mean, on an emotional level and on a cognitive level, I went through the first 15 years of my life being horrified that I had a penis. and very upset by it. But, so yeah, I'm totally I feel like in freshman year of high school, which is also when I came out as a trans woman, is when I figured out how to metabolize that and transform that pain or confusion into something either funny or celebratory or sexy. Yeah, I say also, just a note on the current world, is that I feel increasingly like I hit the jackpot in being born, because for a while, for the past 15 years, I've been oh, I was born 2000, probably from here on out, trans kids will have it pretty good. I maybe was of the first generation of trans kids who were going to have it fine. But now it seems like I'm going to be the only generation of trans kids who have it fine. And it literally just peaked 10 years ago. And now it's just going to get so bad. So I don't know. That's an important note that I it seems the lights are dimming on the world. So, yeah, that 2000 birthday, I think really was a lucky win.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think what's interesting, I don't really have the vocabulary because I'm trying to put this together in my head as we're talking, but it's because there's a deeper level is what I think is interesting about what you said. Even though there are plenty of options in terms of transitioning now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There is still, I think what you're trying to say, and if I'm saying this right, is that there is still at the core a deep sadness. You have that it wasn't just.
Yes, totally.
That it wasn't just AFAB, right?
Oh yeah. I think if you asked most, I mean, this is a dangerous, this is the cancel Andrew Beckerman and Asher White podcast. No. I think if you asked most trans women, or at least a lot of the trans women that I know personally, including myself, if you asked them, would you rather be a trans woman or would you rather be a cis woman? I think we'd all go, I think most of us anyway would go cis women. It's not the Netflix original series answer. And in some ways I am grateful to be a trans woman over a cis woman. And I'm, it is a strange blessing in disguise to be a trans woman, and not a cis woman. However, positives aside, I'd probably rather be, I would still choose to be born a cis woman. And the reason I'm not transitioning, or one of the reasons I'm not transitioning, is because I don't feel that transitioning would actually fulfill what I want. Even though it would get me closer maybe to, on a day-to-day level, I would not have to worry about shaving and stuff. I think the reason that I think that the core of it is, maybe this is nihilistic, and I think there are a lot of trans theorists and trans scholars who would, find this to be, trans pessimism or something. But it's the premise of it. I want it to be cis.
I'm curious about that. How does that, I never poke at people's trauma or feelings just to do it. I'm always curious about how that contributes, how that kind of sadness that's there at the bottom of everything, how that contributes to your creative life, or how that pushes you to make things.
It's ineffable. So the only thing that you can do is, this is so corny. Now I'm having that Euphoria, Netflix original moment. It's ineffable. So the only thing you can do is make art about it. That's just how it is. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that is a little bit it. Like, I think the urge to turn to an art form or poetry or something. I think about this particularly with poetry because I'm bad at writing poetry and completely awestruck when people are good at it. And my friends who are good at poetry, I'm like completely dazzled by. But what's crazy to me about poetry is that, like, as you seem to also do, you like really rely on like a lot, like language. Like that's the tool that we use to like think through and express ourselves. And the English language is like it's like a more is more kind of thing. Like we can think through or talk through anything with enough words or the right words or whatever. And what is completely mysterious and powerful to me about poetry is that it always seems like it's like subtractive and people are able to approach language from the reciprocal end where they're actually omitting an enormous amount of words or using words in such a way where it's not about the quantity of them. It's just about there's something ineffable. And, I'm like completely mystified by this. That's the most one-to-one, like the idea of it being ineffable. It's because it's words. You see, obviously there are paintings that express something ineffable, but it makes more sense because those aren't words anyway.
No, I get what you're saying. And that, because I'm just like, well, if I throw 300 words at this thing, maybe I'll eventually figure out what the meaning is. Whereas a poet can just be like, well, here's 6. And
yeah, totally. Which is like, I mean, that's amazing to me. But so the music, is, I think, kind of if I am not able on a podcast to explain the experience of gender dysphoria or explain some profound sadness at the cornerstone of my being, or it doesn't feel like comprehensive in some way, it definitely is helpful to have another form that doesn't rely on the same tools or the same mechanics to reach a similar idea.
This is maybe a dumb question, but do you think in a society that would be more open to an expanded understanding of humanity and how gender can form in a human being, do you think that sadness would be there? I realize that is counter.
No, it's a good question. I don't know. Probably not, because I'm not often, it's not like the reason I'm sad is because I like really, really want like labia. Do you know, like it's like, it's not so mechanical where it's like, I just need a vagina, which is why the transition thing is not interesting to me. It's like, it's because our concepts of like what woman is and what man is are like so fundamental or so essential to us. And so even if logistically, academically, cognitively, etc., politically, everything, those things can be divorced. There's still like a subconscious kind of emotional, psychic tie. And so I'll like always feel that I wasn't born a woman. But if those structures didn't exist, I probably would not feel that way.
Because there are other cultures where there are expansive understandings of gender.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. No, I think it's about like it's about growing up and recognizing that I like the people who I found to be and find to be like the smartest, most cunning, most aspirational figures, most relatable figures, the people I've emulated, the people I've modeled myself after are all women. And I have only found myself really relating to other women. And before I began thinking of myself as a woman, I was like, I literally will just always be lonely because I don't have any friends who are boys. I don't know how to do it. I have no idea how to relate to these boys. I guess I'll just have to wait until I marry a woman or something. Like when I was like 11, I was like, I have no idea. I was like, I want to have sex with men, but I like don't like talking to them. And like, I don't even know what I'm going to do. Like, this is a nightmare. Like, I was just like, I'm in a real pickle. Because I can't have girl friendships because I'm a boy, but I can't have boy friendships because I don't like them except for having sex with them. I hadn't had sex when I was 11, but that happened later, but you know, I was speculating. And, yeah, so it's totally about like, I feel that my dysphoria and my gender fuckedness is pretty predicated on the sociological conditions of my life and this world and this culture and everything.
Right. That we live in a country founded by Christian extremists who then went on to create the social structures that we all live under now in the 21st century.
Yeah. That was really cool of them to figure out how to
It was cool of them.
That was really sick. That was just kind of a sick kickflip that they did with that one. Yeah. And, you know, having a strong mom and a nice dad who, like, you know, is very sweet. Both my parents are sweet.
Did you grow up in Providence?
No, I grew up in Chicago. I grew up I grew up on the border of Chicago and Evanston.
Evanston. Another Evanston person.
Are you from Evanston?
I'm not from Evanston, but Lauren Lapkus is from Evanston.
Oh, yeah. That's true. We went to the same. We both did Yalmo.
Sam Irby
at high school.
Samantha Irby is from Evanston. Plenty of people are from Evanston. It's a very you have a good arts school, right?
Actually, no. I mean,
no?
not officially. It's a regular public high school, but it happens to breed. I think because it's not an art school, it breeds people who are, like. Not like who are nice and also have a generally open idea of what they can do. It's not like it's like a very large public high school. Mm-hmm. It has like 3,200 people in it.
But were you interested in any of the arts programs? Like, because I just remember Lauren talking about something about like the theater program was fantastic there or something like that.
Yeah. It had a good theater program. It has a comedy show called Yamo that.
I was about to ask you what that, because I glossed over that. What's Yamo?
No, it's not. It's very unimportant. But you should ask Lauren. It's a comedy show that happens in the high school. Like it's a student written comedy show and student performed, and I did that. But it's like the wing of the theater department of that school that is not exclusive to be like I could do it even though I wasn't in any theater classes or anything. And I ended up being like the general director the last year and stuff. So I was like in that. And there were like a lot of kids who were into art. They were like artsy kids, but the art classes are like art 1, art 2, art 3. You know, it's like pretty, it's not like,
it's not,
I didn't have like, well, when I went to
abstract expressionism class.
Well, but like when I went to college, that like everyone I was going to school with was like, I just went to like, yeah, like in my like the like psychosexual, relationships of Lucian Freud, like AP honors, like people were doing insanely, or people had like textiles weaving classes when they were like 16, and I was like completely perplexed by that. So I don't, yeah, it was a rego school. And when I say like regular high, like I don't want,
I went to regular high school. You're not.
Yeah.
I wasn't a fancy lad. I didn't get to go to a private school. I didn't get to.
I hate these schools because I also, you know, like Brit school. I was always really pissed about, all throughout high school, I was like really pissed at Brit school. I was like because I was like making music, but all these fucking British kids who went to this like very expensive, music conservatory program, but it was like a cool music, like it was like you listen to Can and stuff, and you listen to The Fall, and then you create an indie rock band. Yeah, it's like where like King Cruel and Black Midi and all those Jockstrap or whatever, like all those British bands went to this one school, and I was always really jealous because they're like 3 years older than me, and they were being lauded for being like, you know, prodigies. And I was like, they've been playing violin since I can't believe this. Yeah. But now
was there any music scene in Evanston? There
was, but there's a big rap scene, a big like jazz rap scene, especially when I was there. But like, there was a major, we kind of invented Brockhampton, Evanston, not literally, but like, when I was like a freshman, there was like it was like the thing would be like a large multiracial group of young men who would like dress similarly and like have a posse, like a rap posse. And there would be like a kid playing like trumpet in there. Like it was like it was like a bunch of like, biracial kids with big, like the drug ponchos, but that like kind of were like drug rugs.
Mm.
And and then like white kids who were like Jewish, but they had dreadlocks.
Oh, fun.
It was crazy. It was kind of beautiful. And so there was like, that kind of thing. And then there was weirdly an emo revival, like a emo revival scene in Skokie, Illinois, like a little further west, where my friend Leor Miller, who she is also who later would also become a young trans indie rock sweetheart, who she still makes music. She's amazing, an incredibly influential figure to me. Had a venue called Karl Marx The Spot, and there were like people playing pop punk in there, and like it was like everyone was really, really into American football and like Don Cab and Slint and stuff, and so everyone was doing these like very mathy, technically proficient, angsty music in a garage. I guess not drinking beer, because it was like in their parents' garage, and it was like everyone was 15.
Oh, okay. It wasn't that they were straight edge. It was that they were they were parents.
The young.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I mean, everyone smoked weed. There was like not a lot of drinking, I felt like, in Evanston, but everyone smoked weed.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do your parents end up there?
My dad went to Northwestern, which is in Evanston, and my mom grew up further out in the suburbs, but then moved back to Chicago in her 20s, and my dad had stayed there after he's founded a theater company, and they were in Chicago chilling, and then met somehow. And then moved to Evanston because it was more affordable.
Okay. Are they both actors?
No, my dad was an actor briefly until I was in middle school, and then he became an administrator at the theater company that he was acting for. And my mom is a nonfiction children's book editor.
Interesting. Okay, so both your parents are in and around the arts.
Yes, yeah, totally. And both of them had interest. I mean, my mom was interested in theater. She was briefly an actor, or just like around the scene. I think she did like Second City stuff. Mm. It was an arts. It was like again another Goldilocks zone of like not having Nepo baby allegations unless you're like very, very interested in the specifics of Chicago nonprofit theaters in the 90s, in which case I have some connects to that scene from 30 years ago. But like they're interested in culture and arts and media and stuff, but not in a particularly lucrative way.
Look, no offense, Asher, but if it ain't Steppenwolf, you ain't no Nepo baby.
Yeah, I'm like, thank God I'm not Gary Sinise's kid. It's Looking Glass, if that means anything.
No, I literally,
yeah,
I can.
There's no way.
I can check one Chicago theater company.
Yeah, that's how it is. Yeah, which is good. I think that's how it is.
Yeah. I mean, outside of like, look, if we were going to talk improv, then I could talk about I.O. and we could talk about Second City and
Annoyance
and Del Close. We can get deep
Del
into
Close.
that if you want to, but when it comes to theater companies, that's where my knowledge ends with one.
Neo-Futurists? Neo-Futurists?
No, is that improv?
No, but it's a lot. It's like somewhat adjacent, or there's like a lot of overlap because it's dynamic. I'll send you a link. There's, I think, I don't know. There might be an LA chapter.
Look, if they're not doing Harold's, I don't know what.
Yeah, no Harold's.
So, how Jewish was the family?
Medium Jewish, not actually very low Jewish.
Okay.
Go
to temple Jewish at all, or
I went to Hebrew. Yeah. I went to Hebrew school. I went to Hebrew school and Sunday school. So I actually can read Hebrew phonetically, though I'm like not really racing to whip that out so much right now. But it's like for a while I like that was like a cool thing to say at a party. People would be like, "Oh wow," and like Yeah, they had me go to Sunday school twice a week, and but my mom was not really into it. I think my dad was more interested in preserving an element of Jewish tradition in the household. It was a Reconstructionist synagogue, if that means anything. It's so it was, they retained the kind of cool minor key Yiddish melodies. Like, they didn't do any of that, like, LA Carole King bullshit. But it was, like, not
good.
like...
Come on. I like a mix.
Oh, my God. Yeah. He had a guitar. Like, he was doing a guitar, it was, like, nice. But I don't know. They all have, like, every time when I started meeting LA Jews, they all had, like, these, like, scary... It sounded like Christian camp songs. They were all, like... Let us be together. Like, it was a very strange, secularized thing.
Well, it might not just be LA, because I'm from Pennsylvania, and I think it's a 60s influence. I think that a lot of the melodies changed, and you have like these kind of folk songs that got into it in the 60s. And then when I was a kid in the 80s, that you just had, like, my parents' generation, that's what they knew. And so there was a lot of that, along with all the minor key, Kol Nidre, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. No, I mean, he was playing, my cantor, I'm now thinking, like, he's playing, like, feasibly, maybe, like, a more melancholy Mamas and the Papas cut. Do you know, like, it's like that, it's like that kind of thing.
Like, I remember the rabbi's son playing Circle Game. Whoever sang that. I'm looking it up. I'm not texting someone.
Oh, by Joni Mitchell?
Joni Mitchell. Yeah. I remember that being one of the songs.
Oh, wow.
That they played as part of the I forget. There'd be a part where in the middle of the service, maybe after the Oab Shalom or something like that, where they'd play a song or two.
Yeah. I think probably it would. I think were we to go to each other's childhood high holiday services, we wouldn't feel particularly alienated or miffed. I think we'd be like, oh yeah, this is fine.
Yeah,
this is okay.
Did you like it?
Yeah, I hated it. So I hated it growing up, and then when I was in college, once I had, like, autonomy over it, I was like, really into it, and recognized that I also got lucky there. Like, my rabbi growing up is, like, the premier anti-Zionist rabbi, so I felt like I was at a young age mercifully exposed to, like, a very good, productive trajectory through what it means to be, like, an American Jew.
Yeah.
He's this guy Brant Rosen, who's like unbelievable, and like a fearless guy and close family friend. So, which is now, again, like, going through college and meeting all these people who grew up Jewish, and they're like, I literally, until I was, like, 15, I, like, wanted to go on Birthright or whatever.
It never made sense to me. When I was a kid,
but I think that's the exception, though. Like, I think a lot of people are just indoctrinated really young, especially American Jews, especially wealthy American Jews, are just, like, they're brought up being like, yeah, that's the thing.
Yes, we 100% fall along class lines.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I think that what your political beliefs definitely, there's this weird thing. Being Jewish is strange because we dip in and out of different classifications depending on class and geography. Like, we are undoubtedly white in major metropolitan areas without any question. But when I'm in Pennsylvania, where I was growing up, I was othered for sure. They could sniff the challah on me. Right? They knew I was different, and I was treated differently because of that. I'm not pretending like I wasn't white, but I'm just saying that, like, it was like I described to my wife yesterday. I was like, well, it was like being Irish in, like, 1905.
Well, it's like whenever you have a homogeneously anything group of people, the least of that thing, or, like, the closest. Possibly, like, it's an insane stretch, the idea that, like, my last name is white, so in terms of whiteness, let's just say I have my fair share. But, like, yeah, in a homogeneously white group of people, the closest thing you have to a non-white person maybe is either going to be, people are going to invent some type of different categorization and be like, well, that's the thing, which is why as soon as America began to be as soon as in metropolitan areas there were non-white people, Jews were just totally white and became racist and joined the ranks of the machine of it. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like that's how it goes. The like Italians and Irish people who now are like, or at least like that's like what Do the Right Thing is about, right? Is that like these people who were historically othered by the dominant white people are now actually like the most insidiously racist people because they have clambered to the top of their respective chain. And so now like, they'll
still never be WASPs though. They'll still never be.
Yeah, they'll never do it.
But I think this is going back to like what we started talking about, which is alienation, which even in Jewish groups, I felt alienated, whether it's my temple where I was like, why does anyone care about Israel? I'm American. Like I didn't understand it then.
Yeah.
And no one was telling me anything. Or, I was in a youth group. I was in BBYO and it was again, class lines. I'm a middle-class Jew. And a lot of the people in BBYO were upper middle class or came from wealthy backgrounds. And so I didn't get them. And I didn't understand. No one was explaining class to me. No one like threw a copy of Das Kapital into my hands and said, check it out, kid. Like I didn't understand I was just in this soup and like no one was explaining anything to me. And I was just like, well, I don't feel like these people. They seem easygoing and I'm anxious all the time. Like, why do they seem to have no concerns? And I'm worried about everything. I'm worried about Hitler coming back. Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And so I felt even in group, except for like my friend group, I always felt alienated wherever I went.
Yeah, I felt alienated in. Are you asking if I felt alienated in that?
It was just a prompt. It was just going back to like what we started talking about.
I think did you feel that other people around you were also alienated?
I didn't get that impression. I mean, people say now as an adult, everyone feels alienated. And I'm like, I don't get that. I still don't get that as an adult. I'm like, you seem like you are having fun and you are.
It's like the thing that's like everyone's having a lot less sex than you think that they are. Do you know that like maxim that like you walk around the world being like, oh, I bet all these people are like fucking and I'm like, I'm not or something. But then it's like everyone is always kind of convinced that their sexuality is somehow abnormal. But this is true, I think, for also just like feeling like a normal person. But I feel like my experiences in school and as a kid, both in Hebrew school and in elementary school and middle school, was that like everyone was checked out and like was kind of struggling, or like no one was happy to be there. So it felt like, in some ways, like I didn't even, and not even that we all fit in together, actually that we particularly did not fit in together, and that we all had totally different ideas and were coming from totally different homes and different things that we would rather be doing, but we all shared the fact that we would rather be doing something else, and that we all didn't fuck with the teachers or with the principal or whatever. So it was like a very, it was neither a experience of like real camaraderie nor an experience of total isolation, because it felt like, it felt that probably every other kid was like, this fucking sucks and I don't relate to anything about this. And I don't relate to any of my classmates.
Is that a generational thing, or was it just a Evanston thing?
It might be an Evanston thing. I felt that there were groups of people, like there were groups in Hebrew school or whatever. There were kids who like all were friends and they were like, we belong. And they probably felt like they belong. And they were like, you don't belong and we belong. And that happened in public school too. But, for the most part, I felt like I don't think that anyone felt in high school that they were representative of the community of Evanston, or that they were representative of the student body, or that they fit in particularly well to the student body. I think everyone probably felt like the other people were different than them.
Okay. I asked this a lot on the show then. why make art? And I don't mean that in general. I mean specifically for you. You're not just a musician. You make, you're a visual artist. Why do it? Where does it come from in you?
I think I try to cast a wide. I feel like I'm not even really tied to the art thing. Like, I'm not even really I'm pretty ambivalent about it. No, I love making art and always will. But it is the creative outlet. You're asking about the creative outlet, not about like art in general.
Yeah,
or like not about art specifically.
You specifically.
But like the creative urge, because I feel like I could stop writing music and stop making visual art if you were like, you can now only write scripts. I would be okay with that. Like I would manage.
Yes, in general.
I don't.
But if I said you can't do any art,
I would be upset.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think the creative urge to me, in terms of the medium or terms of what it is pretty loose. But you're asking like, why make work, or like, why make stuff?
Yeah, why do it? Why not? You said you work at a record store, right?
Yeah,
I
did, yeah.
I know plenty of people. Why I ask these questions is because on the show, I'm just like, I know plenty of people who worked at a record store. They love it, and they don't have any kind of other ambitions, and it's fine. And this is not a criticism of them. They seem happy.
They're actually probably way happier.
Maybe.
I don't know. But, or better, at least better at their job. I think the main impetus is about, that I chiefly think of myself as a consumer and as a listener before a creator. Like I most of my day, I'm listening to music or reading things or watching stuff or like intaking information. When I say watching stuff, I literally mean just like, this could be like looking out the window. Like I just feel like incredibly, inundated at all moments with information and with experiences and ideas. Not like I'm generating ideas, but like there are so many ideas out there. Especially in New York. I'm new here. And I'm like completely overwhelmed by the amount of just like on any city block, how many ideas and moments are there in real time, like revolving in themselves, just kind of like geocaching, just like it's all this stuff. It's all these people with convictions and disappointments and stuff. And I feel very porous. I feel very receptive to these things. And feel that I owe, as an exchange, some type of synthesis of them. I feel like, it's the only way, or maybe that otherwise I would just explode if I were to just keep eating and keep listening to music without, like using a spit valve to like let some, some out. I feel
that.
Yeah, I feel that it's like a reaction, literally. I mean, so often the way that I think of a song is because I'm listening to another song or I'm listening to a playlist or something, and I'm like, oh my god, like, what if these songs, like, had a baby, but it was like this also happened too, and there was like this going on? And then like, oh, maybe there's like a sound of like a car starting or something, and then it's like, oh, well, I have to just make that because it now effectively exists by nature of having conceived of it.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Otherwise, you would go insane because
totally.
I think about it like this. I can't. It's very difficult for me to. I was about to use the word consume like you did, and I was like, I balked a little when you said it, and I was like, and I know what you mean. You don't mean to consume as in like a commodity, like capital, right? You mean literally almost like it's a meal,
like digest, like metabolize, like it, like I'm getting its nutrients. Like I feel like I read something and I literally feel it coursing through me, and I like have energy that I have to get out.
That's exactly how it is for me. There's so much. It's very difficult for me to watch anything and not have that feeling.
Right.
It's tough to relax, even if I'm like it's 11 o'clock at night and I'm watching a shitty program. I'm like, well, I guess I would do this differently, or like, I don't think I would write this character like this. This kind of sucks. And so, I have a book club with my friend, and we're reading this book right now, and the characters are detestable. I don't think the person is the author is a good writer necessarily. I don't know. I've never read anything else they've written, so I can't 100% be sure. But I get the feeling. I'm like, this isn't the best written thing, but there's a core concept that's very good. And I really like the core concept of this. And so as I'm reading this book with detestable characters and detestable prose, I am thinking through what I would do different.
Do you do that? Do you find that, does that trouble you ever, that instinct?
Can you say more about that? Because I'm not sure what you mean by trouble.
Are you ever released from it? Because that's also maddening. Like,
no, I'm not.
Do you ever you're never released from it? Like,
No.
is there a movie or a piece of media that you've watched in the past, like, year that it somehow just for some reason it suspended your analytical or the cerebral part of you that wanted to, deconstruct it and think about its composition?
Think of a thing specifically. I can think of two examples, though. I can think of a generalized idea to answer this, which is, I know there's been a piece of fiction that I've watched. I can't remember if it's a TV show or a movie that has moved me, and in moving me emotionally, I don't think through how I would have done something differently.
Right.
And there's been films that have been so amazing that that it doesn't shut off the cerebral part, but it charges me with energy. Like, I saw My Dinner with Andre for the first time last year.
Yeah.
And it's so fucking good that it charged me with energy, but it didn't shut off the cerebral thing. So I guess sorry. So I can't come up with an example, but I know that there's been stuff that have moved me almost to tears.
Yeah. But then after that, are you like, fuck, how did they do that? Don't you want to be like, was it a line? Like, was it music? Like, how did they do that?
No, because I kind of know how it's done. I've been doing this long enough, but I can't do that. I don't think I write in that way. I don't know. Like, is it different for you when you write a piece of music? Are you just connecting with it and expressing what's inside of you? Are you thinking of an audience and how they might react to it?
Well, this is maybe about what you just said before that, which is like, oh, well, I don't do that, or like I can be moved to tears and I know how it's done, or I appreciate it, but it doesn't totally apply to the particular thing that I'm doing, which maybe also harkens back to your first question about pop music and relating to pop music and what what is behind the enjoyment of top 40 music and whether it resonates and stuff. And this is also an answer to my own question about like, how do you get out of analytical an evaluative zone? And I think it orients me towards music and media that I feel is so fundamentally outside of what I could possibly make. Like, either relies on some type of technical proficiency or a cultural or like social orientation that like I obviously don't have, or some kind of geographic thing. Like, it's the music that I'm like. There are Farrah Sanders saxophone solos that those are moments. Listening to jazz actually is a great example, like particularly that period of like mid 60s free jazz. Elvin Jones, McCoy Tyner, is music that I don't relate to the way that it was made at all. Mm-hmm. They're operating on such an insane level of understanding of the music and of their craft, and of music theory, and like it's so beyond what my brain can comprehend or what my body can physically produce that I literally can only gawk at it. I can the experience of it is totally naive. I listen to it and I'm like, this is fucking crazy, and I'm moved by it, and I'm like ripped apart by it. However, listening to like Cat Power or something, I love Cat Power. Actually, Cat Power's not a good example because she's like a little bit she's like not she's like a little bit mystical too. I don't know. Actually, listening to Joanna Newsom is a really good example, where I can't listen to Joanna Newsom without being like, I should be taking notes. Or like, I can't listen to Joanna Newsom. I mean, I've cried so often to Have One on Me. And that album and Joanna Newsom's entire oeuvre has been so important to me. and has been a profoundly emotional experience. But it is way harder for me to actually just enjoy it and not be like, oh God, she's so fucking smart. She's so clever. Like she's so, I gotta figure out how to do that, because it's feasible that I could write a 7-minute song on my harp. I don't have a harp, but if I got a harp, I was like, I could probably do that. But I never feel that I could do that when I listen to like YG. Like, I feel that with like, yeah, like Southern rap, like Atlanta, like hip hop and like California, like YG and Compton rap. I'm like listening to, and I'm like, I'm not gonna make a song that's like this. And I'm not really gonna learn anything from this. I can just like, I like it and I enjoy it and I recognize that it's clever, but I'm not worried about its construction, because I know that it doesn't really apply to me as a creator. I can only be a listener, which is nice.
Huh. Yeah, that's funny. I can't even turn it off. I was just thinking about, like, I was listening to Open Mike Eagle this morning, and I was like, even I can't turn it off because I'm trying to think about how he's constructing a verse.
But he's doing a different thing though, because he's like a podcaster. Like Open Mike Eagle is like a really particularly like Open Mike Eagle is like a coffee shop rapper. Like his rapping is like way more about, he's like a hipster. Like that's his thing. Is like I feel like he's working within a paradigm that is really familiar to us, because he's like, you know, like dropping like Colson Whitehead as, you know, like he's like a real like, he
references the X-Men and anime. It is.
Yeah. I mean, he's like a nerdy dude. So as a nerdy person, it's easy to be like, oh, okay, we're actually operating in similar circles. But hearing music that does not share the same reference points as me is like transcendent, and allows me a better, I feel like I can approach it with more, I can approach it fully. I can approach it more wholly and with more reverence, and also respect the level of intelligence behind it instead of envy it. Do you know? Because it's like not applicable to me.
Because it's something that was so far outside of your cultural experience that it was never available to you.
Yeah, or technical experience or whatever. This is, yeah, I mean, it's also listening to like, I mean, it's why I don't really relate to like Frank Zappa. No, I guess I don't know. He's self-taught, but it's like, I don't relate to like super, I don't know. I don't relate to a lot of classical.
Joe Satriani. Steve Vai, something like that.
Yeah, totally. I don't relate to real technically proficient forward people. Not that their music moves me, but I don't relate to it. I don't really know what's going on in their heads. I'm just like, this is great.
Right. So it just has to be something that shuts down that analytic function in your brain so that you can just kind of enjoy it.
And as you become more arrogant, it's like, I'm like, also, I should say, like, me listening to Rena Newsom and being like, I could do that is like a complete fallacy. Like, that's completely insane that I would think that. But because she's working with themes that I relate to, I'm like, oh, cool. And so it's like something I can pull from more. I feel totally that way I feel that way most with like, because I don't want it to be like, I don't want it to be divided along genre lines. Cause it's like, there's a ton of like, rap producers who I do feel like I really relate to, like Timbaland and Neptune and Pharrell and the Neptunes. It's like, I listen to that and I actually do like, it's not rap that I can really, I'm like thinking about the way that they're making these beats, because I know I don't know what he's doing, but I relate to his technique or his like compositional approach or something. Like it's hard for me to get lost in a Timbaland beat because I'm thinking about it.
Asher, that seems like a nice place to end, especially because as this whole thing you described, I'm just like, oh yes, this is my experience too of a lot of these things. So I'm just like, okay, because part of this also is the exploration of I haven't given it any intellectual thought. Why does your music resonate with me?
Yeah.
But talking to you, I'm just like, oh, obviously we are very alike. And so I'm like, totally. I get it.
Right. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. What a delight.
This is a joy. Yeah.
And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye, oh, 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 bye.